Welcome to another episode of the S.E.M podcast. Jack Bryce and Zach Hewlett back here again hosting. And our guest today is Jordan Beal. How are you, Jordan?
Good. How are you guys doing?
Doing well, thank you.
Excellent. Yes.
Where are you calling from today?
I am calling from my minivan in my driveway in Hilton, New York, just outside of Rochester.
Oh, nice.
All right.
Very cool.
Yeah, great. And why don't you start us off with how you ended up in Scotland? Is there, any pre-mission story? You're getting the call, your reaction to that? We'll start there.
Yeah. So I grew up in Davis County, Utah. And so I definitely grew up in, that Mormon bubble sort of thing, as much as you hate to call it that and to claim it. After a while, it's hard to avoid actually claiming it. And so, growing up all around me with my family, my extended family, all of my friends, we always just talked about going on missions. We were all pumped about it. And you always just kind of hoped that you wouldn't end up going to Boise, Idaho or something. And so opening up a mission call and getting to read Scotland, Edinburgh was definitely some excitement there. And a lot of jealousy of some of my friends that had recently gotten their mission calls, including one who spent a good chunk of his mission in Idaho, in northern Idaho, in the Spokane mission. He loved it, and it was a great experience for him. But at the time, he was not, he was a little jealous. But
sure.
I had only met one other person who had gotten that mission call, and he actually got home from his mission right before I left in 2010. I don't know if I'll just name drop him since there are a lot of people who listen. Kellen Whetstone. I went to high school with Kellen.
Nice.
And he was always a good friend of mine. And so when he got home, he was excited to talk to me about it, and it was fun to hear what I was in for, even though I had no idea. But
it's great.
Yeah, that's pretty good, I think, to even know one person who's fresh from Scotland. Like most people we talk to, maybe they know one, but they served in the 60s or something. So
exactly. I guess that was the other thing. I had a friend in high school whose dad had served in Scotland. But yeah, so I was lucky to have Kellen to talk to, like right when he got home and right before I left. So
yeah. So what was the timing of when you went out, when you came back?
I left the first week, and I can never remember the exact date just because international flying and traveling is ridiculous. But it was either the 6th or 7th of May, 2010 that I left, and then around the same time, 2012 that I went home.
Okay, cool. Well, tell us what you've been up to since 2012 then, last 12 years or so.
Yeah, so I got married in 2013, graduated from BYU with a degree in political science in 2016. And then I went to law school at Syracuse University in upstate New York, and have been practicing law since 2019 when I graduated. I have 2 kids. I have an 8-year-old and a 4-year-old who are asleep in the house, which is why I'm in the van. But
love it.
Boy, girl.
So my oldest, my 8-year-old is a boy. My 4-year-old is a girl. So it's,
you got them. You got them all.
That's it.
It's good. Love it.
Cool. Well, that's fantastic. We're glad to hear things are going good, sounds like. And
yeah.
Why don't you take us back now to the mission? You can start MTC. We'll just go through companions, areas, however you want to roll with it, whatever stories you want to tell. And we'll just reminisce a little bit.
Sounds good. So, oh man, you guys are going to need to stop me. Otherwise, I'm just going to talk all night. But when I got to the MTC, okay. So the MTC was not even 3 weeks long, and it was probably the most anxiety I'd ever felt in my life up to that point. Just because there were a lot of rules and a lot of things that we needed to learn, and it was really close supervision. And so I was really nervous that as soon as I got to the mission field, it was going to be very similar to that. And luckily, when I went into the mission field and I realized that it was just me and my trainer in our area, and that, we could kind of,
you're on your own pretty much at that point.
Exactly. And I think that it was always a little, I had a lot of nerves about, am I going to do this right? What if I teach somebody wrong? What if I forget about the plan of salvation? Something that I've been taught since I was, 2 years old, and I somehow messed it up. And then I very quickly realized that, you just teach from, all the years of Sunday school and all the years of seminary. And it's very, very simple enough that a child can understand it, but it was an important message, and it was really nice to give myself the space after the MTC. But I'm getting ahead of myself, I think. So my first area was in Airdrie and Coatbridge, or Coatbrig. And my trainer was Elder Fernandez Cavillo he's from Spain. He's from Malaga. And he was hilarious. He was exactly who I needed as a first companion to help me, like I said, to help me kind of get past the anxiety and just kind of learn to be a missionary, obviously, but learn to be Elder Beal rather than, the textbook robot missionary that I thought that I had to be.
Yeah.
And he taught me about kebabs and taught me about haggis, and he never ate any of it, but he was happy to take me to any chippy that I wanted to go to, but he had some bad experiences. So,
oh man.
But yeah, and Airdrie was a really cool area. It's a really, I guess I can't speak for it now. It's been too long. But
we know it doesn't change much over there.
It doesn't.
But really, really great ward. Really like when you think of like a ward family, Airdrie is one of the wards that I think of. The bishop at the time was Bishop Puri, and he and his family were just awesome. And just were really welcoming to, they were welcoming to me, which I really appreciated. I think while I was there, Bishop Puri visited Salt Lake City and hung out with my parents and sent him back with a package of stuff for me. And so just,
wow.
Nice.
that sort of guy, which he was great. And I don't talk one-on-one with them as much anymore, but I definitely lurk on Facebook and I see what they're up to, and it's cool. Fun to still have those connections.
Yeah,
but
that's awesome.
Yeah. Should I keep going, or do you guys?
Yeah, keep rolling. So
carry on.
Did you get there one transfer before they combined with Arlington?
Yeah. So was it one? It was either one or two. No, my group was the last group that got assigned strictly to Scotland, and then the group right after me, I don't know what the division was, but it seemed like it was half and half. Half went to Scotland, half went to Ireland. Kind of, President Griffiths it seemed to me at the time that President Griffiths was trying to kind of integrate the two missions with some of the missionaries who had been serving, and so kind of spread everybody out a little bit.
Yep.
The first 4 areas of my mission were really short stints. So I was in Airdrie and Coatbridge for 2 transfers, and then Elder Fernandez was given a new greenie to train in Airdrie and Coatbridge, and I moved up to Elgin for 1 transfer, which was awesome. I loved Elgin, and I was a little frustrated when they moved me out of Elgin because Airdrie is, one of the, it's in the Glasgow stake, so it's a little rough around the edges, we'll say,
yeah,
where you get I was listening to an episode earlier about an episode of your podcast about an elder who had a bus window shatter while he was riding on it, and it made me think. That never happened to me, but there were rocks thrown at buses, and there'd be people on opposite sides of the street throwing rocks at people in in the rough neighborhoods of Coatbridge. So of course, the guys on one side of the street are wearing Celtic jerseys, and the guys on the other side are wearing Rangers jerseys. But
of course.
And like, the day that we got the call that I was being transferred, and Elder Fernandez was staying in Airdrie for another transfer, which he had feelings about that. He had been there for, I think he had been trained in Airdrie, and then he had and then I think he had 2 other companions before me, and then he trained after I left. So I think he spent almost a full year of his mission in Airdrie.
That's crazy.
Wow.
And so when we get the transfer call, he's like, "All right, this is it. This is for me." And he picks it up and he's like, "Hello, this is Elder Fernandez. Elder Beal. All right, here you go." And he was just really, really, really grumpy about it. And
understandable, man.
Yeah, that would be challenging.
I know. And as we were we were out in the street when this happened, and like within 10 minutes of us hanging up the phone call with the assistants and President Griffiths, a car rolled past us, stopped, and yelled, "Jehovah's!" and threw a beer out the window that hit Elder Fernandez square in the chest and splattered all over me. And I'm moving in like 2 or 3 days, so I don't have time to take my suit to the dry cleaner or anything. And so I just balled it up into a shopping bag and just shoved it into my suitcase. It smelled so bad.
Fermented suit.
Yeah, exactly. I will say, I'll put in a plug for Missionary Mall suits. They take a beating, and it kept going for me.
That's great. Wow.
But yeah, and so then I went to Elgin. I was there with Elder Stewart, who had just finished getting trained there, and so he and I were both brand new missionaries, just like we don't know what we're supposed to be doing. And I say that about myself. Elder Stewart knew exactly what he was doing. Elder Stewart was great, and definitely kept us afloat. And we worked really hard. It was a really, really good single transfer that I spent in Elgin. And we caught this kid, Chris Thomas, who was a friend of a member, Annie Dawson, who her family has been in. I keep saying things and I'm like, I feel like I need to couch this because I think it's just my perception and I can't remember exactly, but I feel like the Dawsons had been in Elgin for decades. And so they were just, one of the families in the branch that that was, kind of the part of the lifeblood of the branch.
Yeah.
And Annie, who was, I don't know how old she was. I think she was in youth at the time. Introduced us to her friend Chris, and we were able to teach him all the lessons, and he was baptized before I left 6 weeks later, and it was really cool. I keep in touch with Chris pretty regularly, and he seems like he's doing well, and
that's great.
Yeah, it's really cool. We had a lot of good experiences, and we had a lot of fun in that area too. When Chris was baptized, I was like, I feel like I was going somewhere. Aside from the fact that Chris is such a cool guy. But when we were cleaning up the font, for Chris's baptism, it was one of these fonts that you pull up the floorboards of the church to reveal the font underneath.
I remember that.
Oh man. And it was gross. It was so disgusting. Just dirt and dust and everything. And so we spent probably, it was like a full morning that we spent there just scrubbing it down and everything. When everybody showed up for the baptism, people were like, it smells like bleach in here. And it was just, it's just a couple of 19-year-old kids trying to figure out how to make this place presentable. And I blame Elder Stewart for the success of that baptism and that meeting. And but it was definitely something that you don't get trained for in the MTC, for sure. But yeah, so, and then after Elgin, I was a part of the, there was, after that transfer, there was a big push to integrate missionaries from Ireland and Scotland to kind of make, rather than Scotland missionaries and Ireland missionaries, which was kind of a thing right at the beginning, to kind of unite everyone with the Scotland-Ireland mission. And so me and probably 50 other missionaries took the ferry from Stranraer to Belfast, and my next area was in the Republic of Ireland in Sligo, which was awesome. And I could talk about that, but also I know that we're in the Scotland Edinburgh podcast, so
no, you go ahead and talk about
it. Tell us. We've had plenty of people from the Ireland mission that have come over that talked about their time in Ireland. So share.
Oh, nice.
This is a place of record. We'll just keep rolling with it. It's good.
Yeah,
perfect. But yeah, Sligo was a totally different beast from Airdrie and from Elgin. When I got transferred from Airdrie to Elgin, a few people were like, "Oh, you're being banished all the way up north," and it's like, "Oh man, Elgin." And then I get to Elgin and I'm like, this place is freaking awesome. I don't know what anyone's talking about. This place is beautiful and nice people and all this stuff. And then I get transferred to Sligo, and I knew that I was in for a surprise when I landed in Belfast. And, as soon as we got into the mission van there, the other missionaries who know Ireland better are like, "Oh, where are you going? Where are you going?" And everyone's like, "Oh, I'm going to Galway." It's like, "Oh, Galway's great. Where are you going?" "Dublin." "Oh, that's great. Where are you going?" "Oh, I'm going to Sligo." And, Sligo. Okay. And then they keep moving through. Sligo was part of it, is part of the Dublin stake, the Sligo branch, but it is like to get to zone conferences in Dublin, and we went to general conference in Dublin as well. It was a 3-hour journey one way on the train.
Oh wow!
And for district meetings, which was just our two towns, Sligo, and I can't even remember what the name of the other town was. It doesn't matter. I mean, it does for the people who live there, but it doesn't matter for our purposes. But we would get together once a week, and we would alternate who traveled to each, which happens in other areas as well. But it was like almost an hour and a half on the train just to get to district meetings. So it was real banishment. It was fine. It was a beautiful area. Went all the way up to Donegal, and there were some really, really beautiful scenery. The branch was really small, and the work was really hard. My companion and I, Elder Ferris, and we worked really hard, and we were out every day, and we, some weeks we got to teach a lesson or two, but most weeks we didn't. And Elder Ferris had a collection of all of the rocks that he had thrown at him while he was in Sligo. So it was a little rough. And to be fair, he had started the collection of rocks before he got to Sligo while he was in Springboig in Glasgow. So
that makes more sense.
Yeah. But it was tough, but we had fun. It was interesting because I remember, growing up, you think about missionaries and it's like, oh yeah, two guys, white shirts, ties, sometimes a suit jacket, and they're on bikes. And then you get to Scotland and everyone's like, no, it's way too rainy to ride bikes around here. We're not putting you guys on bikes. Are you kidding me? And then I get to Sligo and Elder Ferris is like, oh, we have bikes. And it was like the only area in the mission that had bikes. And the number of times I fell off that bike is probably a good indicator as to why they don't have many other bike areas in Scotland and Ireland.
So
but we had
just bikes, no car out there?
Yeah, so it was just bikes or walking. The transit system was really bad. Like, other than the main train line that went to Dublin, it wasn't worth trying to navigate that. But
it's difficult to ride a bike in that part of the world because there's not a lot of sidewalks. I mean,
exactly.
You're stuck on a road, and cars don't care. They're going past you, and still doesn't. It's just crazy.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I remember on Guy Fawkes night. What night is that? The
November the 5th.
Yeah, I was gonna say remember and then I'm like, I can fit any number into that. But November 5th, Guy Fawkes night, there were some kids as we're like about to get to our apartment. There were some kids and they threw some firecrackers at us while we're on our bikes, and it was just like, guys, please leave us alone. I'm having a hard enough time riding this bike.
Oh man.
Yeah, I mean, driving, like, roads in Scotland and in Ireland are crazy enough as it is. Like riding a bus, which Airdrie was a big bus area, being as close to Glasgow as it was. And like every time we rode on the bus, and especially it being my first area, I was just like, we're on the wrong side of the road. Also, this bus is huge. It's a double-decker bus going down what in America is a one-lane road, and somehow it's got 3 lines of traffic and cars parked on both sides of it here. Like, I don't know. And then getting on a bike in Sligo, which Sligo is also very well known for its hills and the beautiful scenery. And so we were, it always seemed like we were going uphill and never downhill. So,
man, that's rough.
It was cool. And then the ranch met in this little, like almost a shop front.
Wow, that's unique.
Yeah, it was a shop front that the chapel, like where we'd have sacrament meeting, was on the first floor, and then you'd like go upstairs to do. I'm trying to even remember if the adult Sunday school and adult like Relief Society and priesthood met upstairs, or if the youth and the primary went upstairs. But one way or another, it was just very, very odd, especially for, you know, a Utah boy coming to this tiny branch.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh my gosh. And when I got there, the first thing they asked was, they were like, "Oh, Elder Beal, do you play the piano by chance?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I play a little." And they got so excited. They were like, "Oh, this is going to be great. It's going to be like when Elder so-and-so was here. We're going to have real piano music again." I'm like, "Oh no." Because I've always been a pretty good student, but I was never a very good piano student because my mom was my teacher and I could get away with it.
It's funny.
And so I practiced and practiced and practiced, and like we'd go to district meetings, and we'd go a little bit early so that I could practice on whatever piano. And then I was like, all right, I think I'm ready. Okay. So like the second Sunday we're there, I go up and I go to play the piano and I froze, and I think I was even working off of like the simplified hymn book. And after I sat down after the first hymn, the branch president, really funny guy, very, very well, he was from York, England originally. So he has this very dry sense of humor. And he just walked over to me and he's like, "So I think we're going to go with the CD for the next, one." And I looked at him like, "Yeah, that's fair." And he's like, "Tell us you could play piano." I'm like, "I don't know. I didn't think it all the way through." He's a funny guy. President Walsh, the branch president, I'll put him on blast a little bit for making fun of me. It's my revenge, my retribution. But yeah, it was good. Sligo was definitely a hard area, especially I think that especially in the Republic of Ireland, unlike in Northern Ireland, like compared to Northern Ireland, religion is a very, very difficult subject. And so everyone in Sligo was very kind to us. But then as soon as we started talking about the church and about gospel and about their beliefs and our beliefs, it was impossible to get anywhere without getting yelled at, or without having somebody Bible bash with us and things like that. And you know, that definitely wore on me and wore on Elder Ferris. Luckily, like Elder Ferris, so this was another area where I was very quickly moved out. I don't know if it's me, or you know, if nowhere's good enough for me. I don't know. But I spent 2 transfers there with Elder Ferris, and I was moved back to Scotland to Cumbernauld, which was right back to the Glasgow stake, right back to the Airdrie district even. And so I would go on transfers with my district leader to go see members that I had gotten to know while I was there. And Cumbernauld was a really interesting area where it was, it's another.
I served there for 6 months, so.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
I really like Cumbernauld.
It's unique.
It's a very unique spot. I keep wanting to call it like a suburb of Glasgow, but that's not quite it. But I think that's a decent comparison for what it seemed like to me. And I was there with Elder Volheim, who was this really cool kid from Norway, and
Nice.
he had been trained there, and then I, come swooping in, and I was there for exactly 6 weeks, continuing my very quick stays. And we just had a blast. That was where I spent my first Christmas as a missionary. And we just had so much fun with all of the members. The bishop at the time was Bishop Black, and he and his family were just amazing. They were so kind to us. And really, it was a smaller ward, but it seemed like they took pride in how well they took care of the missionaries and made sure that there were always members available to go out teaching with the missionaries. And so we did so much work with the members, and it was just a really, really cool area. And I was really excited when we got our transfer call that I was finally going to stay somewhere and somebody else was going to leave. But I ended up getting moved again, super far away to Falkirk, which
Right next door.
Yeah, like not even 10 miles away.
Different stake, though.
Yeah, different stake. So it felt like I was going to Edinburgh.
I served there as well. Not
back to back
with Cumbernauld, but
yeah,
I did serve.
Falkirk was my it was my longest area in Scotland. I was there for 5 transfers. So what is that, 7.5 months or something?
Wow.
Yeah. And so I just, we just worked like crazy. I started with Elder Swainson, Rob Swainson. He's a Canadian kid. I think he has recently moved back to Canada after finishing school in the US. But we had a really good time, and we worked like crazy, and we had a lot of fun. The ward mission leader at the time, who later became the branch president, and I think he's last I knew, but I haven't, it's been a while, was in the stake presidency for a while. Matthew Snedden was an incredible guy. He and his family would have us over. Elder Swainson and I would wake up extra early so that we could go to Brother Snedden's house to exercise and work out with Brother Snedden, because he had a rowing machine and a couple of other machines that were just so much better than, doing your push-ups and running around the block. When you were in Falkirk, did you live in that? It was like a 2-story, almost a townhouse kind of.
Yeah, Yeah,
like
look out the back and see the stadium.
exactly.
Yeah.
And it's like right next to a major roundabout.
Yeah,
out the front door.
That's pretty
That's where I
amazing.
lived.
That's pretty amazing. Timeline wise, it's been in the Mission that long.
Well, it felt like it had been there for a long time. There were and it's one of those, like, there were some flats that I had that it's like, okay, this one's newer. Like our flat in Airdrie was pretty fresh. But when we got to Falkirk, or when I got to Falkirk, I was just like, oh man, missionaries have been living in this house for a very long time. With, there was a crawl space under the stairs that was just full of, full of all the crap that missionaries brought with them and didn't feel like moving to the next spot.
I actually found a suit in that apartment, which is amazing because I'm 6'6" and I needed a suit, so it worked out. But it was a treasure trove when I was there. So
my favorite thing that we found there was, so Elder Swainson and I had, we worked like crazy, and then he left, and then I spent the next 3 transfers with Elder Chase Ellett. He's another Utah boy. He's from Loa, Utah. I don't know why I'm giving you guys all these pedigrees. It's kind of fun.
I love it
to see if I remember everything. But Elder Ellett and I found under the stairs, we found a baseball bat and like a bucket of baseballs, and so we were like, I mean, we've got to go play baseball, right? And so we just went out to a random park one P day, and we just hit baseballs all afternoon. It was really fun. I think I did that with Elder Bigelow as well, who was my companion after Elder Ellett. But we had, I love Falkirk. It was such a cool area. And the members are some of my favorite, everyone's my favorite, but some of my favorite members and people that I met on my mission were in Falkirk. I remember.
Did you still have the McFeast on Sunday? Was Sister McFeet still live? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, Sister McFeet. And I forgot about
Sister
that.
Simon.
That's it. Oh my gosh, they were amazing. And every week we're just like, they'd serve us the soup that, like, carrot and coriander soup. And I remember writing it down, and I was just like, I need to figure out how to make this when I get home. And so my wife and I sometimes will still make the carrot and coriander soup that I.
Oh man!
And it's okay. It's like 80% of the way to Sister McFeet.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
But and the McCormacks, and Archie McCormack. If you ever served in Falkirk, Archie. Or maybe, I don't know. But Archie we used to pick Archie up and take him teaching all over the place, because he was always available and ready to go at a moment's notice. Some really fun members there. We taught family when I was with Elder Swainson, the Meads, who were really cool. Linda was a friend of a recent convert that Elder Swainson had taught with his trainer right before I got there. And she, her friend had, changed her life basically. And it seemed to Linda that it, you know, had happened overnight. And so she wanted to know what had happened, what changed in her life. And so she introduced Linda to us. And then Linda ended up getting baptized, and Linda is one of my favorite people I met and taught on my mission, and her family. I think right after I left, I think that her daughter Kobe also got baptized. And they were just amazing and introduced us to all their friends and all their family, and just made us feel so welcome and part of their house and part of their family.
Great.
Cool.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
And then a couple years after, I guess beginning of 2015, this is after my mission, my wife and I moved back to Scotland for a semester. I worked for the Scottish Parliament, and
cool.
we got to hang out with Linda and Kobe then as well, and that was just so cool, so awesome to see them. But again, I'm getting away from my timeline, and I apologize.
No, this is what this is about, Jordan. Share it. I love it.
But yeah, Falkirk, I kept getting transfer calls and kept seeing my companions leave, and it was a really fun change. And then one day after I'd been with Elder Bigelow for one transfer, I got the call, and I got transferred to Bangor in Northern Ireland, which is just north of Belfast, and in the Belfast stake, and that was amazing. Bangor was it was crazy leaving Falkirk, because I was like, I'm never going to have a ward family and feel this close to people ever again, because I'm about to go back to the 1 or 2 transfer areas, and that's okay, because Falkirk's all the family I need. And then I spent 6 months in Bangor right after, and it was so cool. We had some really, really incredible members there, and a lot of referrals, which was just so crazy. It was crazy to me anytime we got referrals after I had left Sligo, where just everyone's just like, we're really happy you're here, but nobody wants to talk to you. And so when I got to areas where it was like, hey, do you want to teach my friend? I'm like, this is crazy. Yeah, of course we want to teach your friend. Your husband, sure, we'll teach your husband. It's like, this is great. And Bangor was just so cool. It was the first time in my mission that I was serving in a branch or a unit that had more. Actually, that's not even true. I was going to say it's the first time I served in a branch that had more than one set of missionaries, but that wasn't true. There were 2 wards in Bangor, but the fact that there were 2 wards, there were 2 sets of elders, and so we worked really closely with the elders from the first ward. Yeah, I was assigned to the second ward. It's been a while, but it was really cool, and I actually got to train that transfer as well, which was really cool. Elder Sutherland, who's still a really good friend of mine. We spent 4.5 months together in Bangor, and it was crazy. The first thing Elder Sutherland said to me when I met him at 51 Spy Law was, he looked at me and he said, hey, I hope this isn't a problem, but I'm a really picky eater. And I'm just like, Wait, you grew up in Utah? He grew up in Manti. No, he wasn't Manti, and he would kill me for saying that he's from Manti. But that area, South Summit High School is where he went to school.
He was from Camas then. If he
was from Camas. Thank you.
I'm looking at him on your Facebook page, and he's friends with some of my cousins because I have family that live up there.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Oh yeah, he's amazing guy. You should talk to Sutherland. He's a really cool kid.
Cool.
But we worked like crazy, and he was not a picky eater. After our 3 transfers together, we worked together. Yeah, we worked together for Christmas, and I remember hearing his parents talking to him about some of the foods that he was eating, and he was like, "Oh yeah," and like blood pudding, and they're like, "You ate blood pudding?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's pretty good." And they just could not believe that. And I mean, when we got back to our apartment, it was peanut butter and jelly, But when we were out with members, he was like, "Yeah, for sure, let's do it." And we, ordered kebabs, and we were driving, so we both gained way too much weight in that area. I had so many car areas on my mission, and I got home and I was 50 pounds heavier than when I left, and immediately started losing weight as soon as I got home. Don't ask me where I'm at now. All right. Like it's okay. Like,
you're not the only one with the same
story. You're not 30 pounds.
Yeah. But,
fish and chips got me, man.
Oh my gosh. Right.
So good.
The fish and chips, or the full Scottish breakfasts, and the kebabs, and just pizza. It's like, "Hey, I'd like a pizza." You say, you go to a Chippy, you're like, "I'd like a pizza." And you see them like, "All right." And they dip it in the deep fryer, and you're like, "Wait, no, not like that."
Oh man, the batter pizzas were so good.
Oh my gosh, they were so good. Or the deep fried Mars bars.
Oh yeah. I couldn't have too many of those. Those things just, it was over the top for me.
I mean, like now I will eat something that, like a normal, like Snickers bar or something. I'm like, "Oh man, that was too much." And like, that was how I felt as like a 19-year-old kid. I can't even, it would kill me now.
Yes, I agree. Oh man.
But yeah, so Bangor was really amazing. We also would go to a branch just up from Belfast, because there weren't missionaries there at the time, in Newton Abbey, I think was the name of the place. And so we would go on exchanges with the zone leaders who were in the first ward in Bangor, and two of us would stay and go to all 6 hours of Bangor church, and the other 2 would go up to Newton Abbey for the. I think they only did a 2-hour block in Newton Abbey because it was a little bit smaller, but
ahead of the time.
It was really cool. Yeah, exactly. It's like, who's really inspired? But yeah, it was really good. Then I served Elder Sutherland, got transferred, and then Elder Smithers, kid from London, Lowestoft, not London, was my next companion, and he was great. I don't have enough nice things to say about Elder Smithers. He was an older missionary, older being like in his mid-20s, because he had converted or he had been baptized about a year, maybe 2 years before he went on his mission. And so every moment that that Elder Smithers spent on his mission and he spent teaching people was just, you could just see that he was just so driven to tell people about his own story and to see them experience that for themselves.
Cool.
And one of my favorite things about Elder Smithers that was really funny was that he would we're out at night, we're tracting or whatever, and it's like 8:50, almost 9:00, and I'm like, Elder Smithers, it's late, it's dark, it's cold, it's raining sideways, can we just go home? And he'd look at me and he's like, Elder Beal, do you know what time the missionaries knocked on my door? And I'm like, what time, Elder Smithers? And he's like, it was like 8:57. We're gonna keep going. I'm like, okay, fine. And I swear, more like at least half a dozen times we would get invited in after, between 8:50 and 9:00. After I had been like, Elder Smithers, just let me go home. And he's like, no, we're going to keep going. And then we get invited in and get a return appointment and people show up to church. And it's just like, okay, fine, whatever, you win. And,
pretty hard to argue with that.
Exactly. Oh, amazing guy.
That's cool.
I remember that being a pretty common thing because most people are like, well, dinner's done and I'm not ready for bed yet. Somebody knocked on the door, come in, let's have a chat. And I was like, this doesn't quite compute with my schedule that I'm supposed to be keeping. But yeah, those instances happen all the time.
TV? Like, yeah.
I mean, maybe, I guess. Read a book.
I know, exactly. Go to bed a little early. This seems more entertaining.
Yeah.
But no, it was pretty cool. But then I got transferred to my final area where I died in Dumbarton. So I did the classic Glasgow triangle where I had 3 areas in Glasgow, in the Glasgow stake, with Airdrie, Cumbernauld, and then Dumbarton. And I was in Dumbarton with, Elder Bigelow, who's from Manti. No, that's not true. I already talked about Elder Bigelow. What am I talking about? I was with Elder Smith and Elder Dixon. I was in a trio. Jeez. For the first transfer, and then Elder Dixon got transferred away, and Elder Smith. No, that happened mid-trip. Jeez. Okay, so I got transferred to Dumbarton. I was in a trio with Elder Smith. No. Elder Kelly. Elder Kelly and Elder Dixon. And Elder Kelly was this country boy from Moses Lake, Washington. And Elder Dixon was he was from London, but he was like Jamaican London. And so these two guys were about as opposite as you can possibly be. And it was the funniest transfer. About halfway through, there was, I think somebody went home unexpectedly. And so Elder Dixon became that missionary's new companion for the rest of the transfer. But for about, it was pretty close to the end of the transfer anyway. And actually, it's funny. I told you guys that I was listening to one of your episodes earlier today. Elder Ream, who I knew as a missionary, he talked about his experience being getting a transfer call and then being asked about his status as a driver in the UK.
Yeah.
And he said, no, I can't drive. And then they had to like scramble. So it was actually supposed to be Elder Kelly that left. But Elder Dixon, who is from London and doesn't need to drive, who needs to drive when you've got good public transit? And then I had been in the country for too long and hadn't gotten my UK license. And so as I was hanging up the phone, I was like, wait, who's going to drive? And they're like, wait, do you need to drive? And I'm like, Dumbarton was a huge area. Like it went all the way up. It was just massive. And I was like, usually we could get around by bus, but we do frequently go, far enough that the car is very helpful. And so they had to shuffle things around. And then Elder Dixon left our trio, which was a sad day because he was Elder Dixon was the craziest person I've ever met in the nicest way possible. He could do a standing backflip in his suit, and not land crouching. He would land standing straight up because he could just do that. And he would. We'd just be like walking down the street and he would just do a backflip out of nowhere. Just like it was awesome. Nothing. And then Elder Kelly and I are both just like, whatever, man. And Elder Kelly, a few times when we were driving through some of these beautiful, some of the beautiful countryside, Elder Kelly would say, do you guys ever yeehaw? And I'm like, what are you talking about, yeehaw? And he stops the car. I will say he stops the car. I don't remember if he actually stops the car, but we'll say, for the purpose of, not promoting terrible driving, he puts his torso out of the window and just yells, yeah! As soon as he did this, Elder Dixon was just like, oh, I've got to do it. Elder Dixon wait until we were passing a cyclist or something and would lean lean himself out the window, and he would start with a yeehaw, but he would get so excited that he'd be and just scream at people as we were driving by. And Elder Kelly's like, you're supposed to do this in the country, out, where it's okay to be shouting and screaming, and
where the trees will hear you, not other people, right?
Exactly, that's it. And so, but it was just, it was so funny.
That's hilarious.
And then Elder Kelly left, and Elder Smith came in as my last companion. He was also just salt of the earth guy. I love Elder Smith from Newcastle.
Nice.
And he had the Geordie accent and everything, and was just a really, really nice guy. And worked like crazy, man. He was a good kid. And we actually, when we went back to Scotland, my wife and I, for that internship, we went down to Newcastle and we stayed with them for a night, and it was really fun. Stayed with them being him and his wife. It was fun. Anyway,
cool.
I feel like I went through my timeline with some meanders.
You've done great. I'm curious, what was it like just living in Scotland like a normal person rather than a missionary when you went back?
It was really cool. So, I mean, the worst part about living in Scotland as a normal person was finding our own place to live, because it's nice being a missionary where it's like, hey, you're moving to Airdrie. This is your address. Here's your key. And occasionally, here's a key to a car. Please don't break it. So, we found a flat that, oh my gosh, you guys, I out about it every morning. Our flat had a beautiful view of Arthur's Seat. Just like this beautiful window that was just like, hey, there's Arthur's Seat. And our flat was less than a mile from the bottom of the Royal Mile, and was just breathtaking.
That's cool, man.
And every morning I'm like, oh my gosh, Heather, can you believe that we live here? And she's like, yep. It's we've lived here for the last 4 months. Yeah, I can believe it. I mean, obviously, you know, it was, but I don't think she actually got tired of it, but she did laugh at me a lot. But it was just so cool. And it was really fun to get to experience Scotland from a little bit more of a secular side, because I mean, while I was there, it was like we'd go to church on Sunday, we'd go to some activity. we hung out with the young single adults quite a bit, because there were a couple of other interns from BYU there that were single, and we hung out with them all the time. And so when they were like, oh, there's an activity at the church, we're like, we're going to come and eat some food. So it was fun to kind of get that experience from like a little bit, I say secular, I guess more of a civilian standpoint. Yeah. That's I was like, secular wasn't the word, it's civilian. And then to work with Scottish people, to talk about Scottish politics with people, and we don't have to get into politics, obviously, we probably shouldn't. But I worked the internship placements that BYU had, which was really funny, because, you know, BYU is quite conservative, but the placements that they had were with the Scottish National Party, which is like the liberal, like this. There's the Liberal Party, and then there's the SNP, which the Liberals think is too liberal in Scotland. And so just talking to these people was so interesting, because I feel like my entire world opened up while I was a missionary, and I learned so much about how other people live, and about the world at large, and about other denominations of Christianity and non-Christian denominations, and a lot about you know, atheist and agnostic people and everything. And then and it was very religious centered, because that was the nature of the work as a missionary.
Yep.
And then with my internship, I got a really solid taste of, you know, your classic liberalism, where it's like very European, very socialist, things like that, compared to growing up in the very conservative districts where I grew up in Utah. And so it was just really cool to kind of get this perspective from like it was almost the same experience, just, you know, with a different lens, you know.
Yeah.
And so it was really cool. And we, you know, when we had days off from Parliament, we went everywhere. We drove up to, or we took trains everywhere. We didn't drive anywhere, but we took trains to St. Andrews. We went up to the Isle of Skye. We went Inverness. We just went everywhere we possibly could, just to see everything. And of course, you know, I wanted to show Heather everything. I wanted to take her to all of my favorite castles, and I wanted to introduce her to all of my favorite members, and and it was just really a really cool experience. So my mom talks about my dad and how he just would not shut up about his mission. And it's just like, yeah, we know Hong Kong's great, which is where my father served. Here, I can. Oh no! Oh, there we go. My father served in Hong Kong, and she's like, he just would not shut up about it, and he was just seemed like he was just homesick about it. And then they went and visited Hong Kong probably 3 years after he got home. And then suddenly he was okay. He was like, I shared my favorite place with my favorite person.
Yeah,
and now we
fair.
can talk about it. And and that was how I felt. It was like, before we lived in Scotland, it was like, oh my gosh, Heather, we need to we need to get haggis. We need to do this. We need to do that. And then after, it's like, hey, remember haggis? Yeah, that's sweet. We should find some sometime, or not, But it wasn't quite as like necessary. I feel like
that's pretty cool.
It used to be the sort of thing where it's like, anytime I pass a shop that's like, oh yes, we sell British products, I'm like, gotta find Iron Brew.
It's great.
But now I'm, just every other time I drive past a place that might have Iron Brew, I've got to run in. But anyway,
a bit tempered.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's great. So your mission, you were under the Griffiths the whole time, is that correct?
That's right. Yeah, I was. Yeah, it was. I'll tell you another. Since you asked and opened this box, when we went back to Scotland, President Brown was still the mission president, and when we were living there, we were in the Edinburgh ward, and so we would go to church and we would see President Brown and Sister Brown at church. And I remember the first Sunday I saw them and I was just like, I bet he's great. I bet he's a good mission president, but he's no President Griffiths. There's no way he's as good as President Griffiths. And then just so happened that Sunday he was teaching the priesthood meeting. It was a combined elders and high priest group. And as he was talking, I was just like, oh man, I want to go on another mission so that he can be my mission president, because he was just amazing. But I loved President and Sister Griffiths. They were incredible, and only the best things to say about them. But
nice. I wanted to serve under the Browns too. They were in the Glen Rothes ward when I served there, and just amazing people. So yeah, that's cool. Any particular memories of your mission president and his wife?
Sure. Oh, I guess. Oh, geez. Yeah. So I had some. Oh shoot! All right. So when I was in Northern Ireland, I had some medical issues. I won't get into it, but it was uncomfortable. And I had to have surgery that I was an inpatient surgery. So I spent a couple of nights in the hospital. And I was released from the hospital on Christmas Eve, one of the years. And there was this wonderful senior couple who was serving in our district. And the Blickenstaffs, they were amazing and still are amazing people. But they took care of me and just sat with me the whole time. And at one point, Sister Blickenstaff looks at me and she's just like, I talked to Sister Griffiths, and she says that you can use my iPad while you're in the hospital, since it's close to Christmas, so that's fine. And also, it's either this or you're gonna watch TV that
rubbish,
can't be turned off, whatever. And so I was like, oh really, you talked to Sister Griffiths about that? Yeah. And she said it's okay. And so fast forward about a week, 2 weeks later, I talked to Sister Griffiths and she's like, hey, how are you feeling? I'm like, oh, I'm good. Hey, thank you so much for talking to Sister Blickenstaff and telling her that it was okay that I use her tablet. And, it really was helpful to keep my mind off of things, blah, 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 blah. And Sister Griffiths looks at me with this blank stare on her face. And she's like, oh, yeah, of course. And and I get an email the next P Day from Sister Blick and staff, and she's like, "Why did you tell her?" I didn't want you to feel bad about it, but now I feel bad about it.
That's amazing.
But Sister Griffiths was just, and just took it in stride, and she's like, "Yep," and she was always just so willing to take very weird and uncomfortable calls from me, and I had a companion who had some uncomfortable to talk about medical issues, and it was always very funny to hear her answer the phone, and it's like, "Sister Griffiths, Elder so and so is having a little bit of an issue," and you just hear on the other line, on the other end, okay, what's going on? And then you'd explain it to her, and I'm just picturing, like, here's the whole situation, and she keeps her composure, hangs up the phone, and just bursts out laughing, because, I mean, we're children who are technically adults trying to talk about adult topics, but the only words we can think of are not very adult, and Sister Griffiths took it in stride. She was just wonderful, and she always, every time there was any sort of meeting or anything, she always made taco soup or chili and cornbread, and all the American elders are just like, "Tacos and cornbread, what?" And all the European elders are just like, "This is so weird. Why do you guys care?" And that was what made Elder Sutherland's "I'm kind of a picky eater" that much more of a betrayal, because he said it about the taco soup. He specifically was like, this is kind of yucky and I don't like it. It's like, "Are you kidding me? This is the best thing ever." And he's like, "Can I just get like peanut butter and jelly?" I'm like, "Oh my gosh." But it was funny. Oh man, if Sutherland listens to this episode, he's gonna let me have it. But
well, reach out to us, Sutherland, and come on here, tell us your side of the story here.
Yeah, of course.
You're welcome.
Gauntlet has been thrown. Yeah. But President Griffiths, I have a million stories about President Griffiths. He was just an incredible guy. And always willing to talk about anything and answer questions that I'm sure he doesn't, that he should have and could have rolled his eyes at, but answered the questions so honestly and very openly, and was just very kind. For example, in my exit interview, I asked President Griffiths. So I was a district leader on my mission, but never a zone leader. And I was a district leader for like 18 months or something like that.
Whoa.
And so I said to President Griffiths, I'm like, "So what gives? Why was was I not good enough to be a zone leader?" Like, that wasn't how I approached it, but I was like, "What's the deal?" And he, just very, very, he was very kind and very gentle, and he's like, "It's nothing about you as a person. It's about, the inspiration that we receive, and we just always felt like you were a really good fit in that capacity," and a few other things that I'll keep to myself that were just exactly what I needed to hear, to because I don't think I ever thought of myself as like a failure of a missionary or anything, but I have always had some pretty especially as an adult, some pretty severe anxiety. And so anytime I even perceive that somebody thinks that I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing, or, doing the best job that I could, it can eat at you. Yeah. And so he just was so good at putting my mind at ease, He was also really good. He was also really good about chastising without being too harsh, which I appreciated, which is something that I needed. Sometimes I hear people talk about their mission presidents, and their mission presidents were a little bit hard, a little bit harsh. And I mean, I'm sure that I would have done just fine and adapted. But President Griffiths was very kind and very thoughtful, very similar to the way that my father has always been to me. And so it was very, I don't know how anyone else felt about it, but President Griffiths was like the exact mission president that I needed. So, but I just remember a couple of times. One time we had, when I was in Sligo in Ireland, my companion and I both were getting pretty shaggy, not nearly as shaggy as I am now. But and we had a member come up to us on a Sunday and he's like, "Elders, do you know that I cut hair?" We're like, "No way, dude. We'd love for you to cut our hair." And he's like, "Okay, sounds good." And so we go home from church and we're like getting ready to leave the apartment, and we get a knock on our door. We open the door, and there's this member with a stool and with a haircutting cape and like a bag full of haircutting equipment. And it's just like, oh, okay, you're not supposed to be here, but how do you say no to somebody who wants to give you a haircut? Also, we're supposed to be working right now. And nice. but we're both just like, "Oh yeah, of course, come on in." And it's like, how long can a haircut last? It's very quick to cut hair, especially when you do it yourself. And it's terrible. And these haircuts took so long. It took it probably wasn't that long, but it felt like it was taking like 3 hours for him to cut both of our hair. And about halfway through, so Elder Ferris gets his haircut and he goes, takes a shower, and gets dressed up again. And about halfway through my haircut, our phone rings. And this happened so many times. Well, so many, like 3 or 4 times at least, where it's like, "Oh, we are not doing what we're supposed to be doing. Oh, the phone's ringing. Who is it? Oh, it's President Griffiths. Crap." And we answer the phone and we're like, "Hey, President, what's going on? What are we doing?" Nothing. We've got a member in our apartment cutting our hair right now. I'm sorry. We didn't know how to tell him to go away and come back tomorrow. I'm so sorry. And it was just, and I think President Griffiths just could tell when people didn't need, or at least for us, he's like, "All right, finish your haircuts. Next time, do it on a Monday." And, you could almost feel the smile coming through the phone, where it's like, you're in trouble, but that because he knows how terrible you feel about it, he's letting you off a little bit because that you're not supposed to be doing it.
Yeah.
I had another, one of the biggest, the biggest issues, like missionary life, day-to-day issues, was music, and what music is okay to listen to as a missionary and what music is not okay to listen to as a missionary. And President Griffiths gave us the rule that was, if you and your companion can feel the Spirit while you listen to whatever music, then I don't care what you listen to, right? Which is the craziest rule I've ever heard somebody give a bunch of 19, 20, 21-year-olds. But so my companions and I would talk about it when it would come up. Usually we're listening to Motab and, classical music, it's not a problem. And then every once in a while, if somebody puts in like a Christian rock CD, and you're like, well, I don't know, and you kind of have a discussion, but somebody had written to President Griffiths that they were riding in a car with me and my companion, and the music in the car was very inappropriate, totally out of line with the White Handbook and Preach My Gospel, and we really, he really felt bad, and all this stuff. And he said, and I think it was a burned CD too, so I don't think it was even, I think it was stolen music,
Oh my gosh.
And so one day we're just driving down the road and get a call, and it's President Griffiths, and I'm like, hello, this is Elder Beal. Oh, you want to talk to my companion? Okay. Elder, pull over. He pulls over. I hand him the phone, and he's like, and I just hear his side, and he's like, yep, no. Elder Beal and I have talked about it. Yes, we're good. Yeah. Okay. And he hangs up, and he's like, President Griffiths says that he has heard that we listen to music that is inappropriate in our car. I'm like, oh, what did you tell him? And he's like, I told him that we've talked about it and that we have agreed that it's okay. And he told us to be mindful of people who ride in our cars. I'm like, and he says, and he also asked me where I got my music. And I told him that I bought it before I went on my mission on iTunes and burned it onto a CD. And that seemed to, that seemed to be enough for him, to satisfy his curiosity on that. And
oh man, that's
I
hilarious.
am specifically leaving out names and areas and everything, but this missionary knew exactly who had ratted him out and was not very happy.
Oh boy.
Oh man.
Crazy.
Anyway, but yeah, President Griffiths was amazing. Very, very strong, but also very gentle leader with an incredible sense of humor. He was just, he was so funny. I mean, dad joke funny, just amazing. And Sister Griffiths was just incredible. I haven't seen or talked to them in a while, and I'd love to. They're really cool. Anyway, great. Any other questions? Anything?
Anybody else you want to shout out? Maybe that wasn't your companion, but you served around, or anything like that. You just want to shout them out on here? And
oh man, so as I've been talking, I'm just like, I am leaving out so many people, and I'm gonna get texts and emails, and I need to. So one other member that I need to talk about, because just incredible person who introduced her then boyfriend, now husband, to the gospel, and introduced us to him. Barbara Bryceland. Do you remember Barbara when you were in Falkirk? Or I don't know.
Doesn't ring a bell. I think I remember that one. Bryceland.
Yeah. Barbara Bryceland, not Barbara Streisand. But she, the first Sunday that I went to church in Falkirk, there was this guy sitting on the front row, very clean cut, and I was just, and in a full suit, dressed to the nines, and I was just like, oh, I wonder how long he has not been in the branch presidency. Just, that was the vibe that he gave off. He's like, that guy used to be in the branch presidency, but now he sits in the front row and he's awesome. Come to find out that this guy's not even a member of the church and is actually dating Barbara Bryceland. And we got to teach him, and his name was Stuart. Just incredible guy. Just amazing guy, and so generous and so kind. Yeah, I haven't seen Stuart and Barbara in a long time, but I try to keep up with them on Facebook and things. But when they came to visit us in Utah a couple of times, they took us out to dinner. When I was on my mission, Stuart would He's like, your shoes have holes in them. I'm like, it's okay. I'm going home in 9 months, so I can wear these shoes till my feet come through. And he like bought me new shoes, or he gave me some shoes that he's like, oh yeah, these are some old shoes. And I'm like, Stuart, this isn't your size. And
Nice.
just amazing guy. And I mean, I'm pretty sure that he's still active. I think he's served in the branch presidency in Falkirk now. He's just amazing guy.
That's cool.
But as far as missionaries go, I mean, I think there are a few. I think Elder Farnes, who was in Springboig when I was in Airdrie. We were in the same district, and meeting a kid who was also from Davis County, Utah, was incredible. It was like, oh, okay, so you get me. And going on exchanges with Farnes was amazing. Man, it's too many people to name, but Elder Martin, Elder Bowles, who is at the time was maybe the most inappropriate person I've ever met in my life, but then I realized that that's just how British people and British humor are. Elder Turner was one of my zone leaders. He was great. Man, Elder Lee. Oh my gosh, Elder Lee. Elder Daves Lee, who is from Hong Kong, who was my MTC companion and then was in my last district. He was my district leader for my last transfer. Incredible kid who was baptized in Hong Kong, and then a year later went on a mission, and his mom had no idea what she was getting into, and she wasn't baptized until he was on his mission. And like while we were in the MTC president had to have Elder Lee and I come to his office so that Elder Lee could talk to his mother on the phone and explain to her that she needed to stop calling the MTC and that he arrived okay and that he was safe and that he would email her on Monday. And I love Elder Lee. I cannot believe I have not talked about Elder Lee yet. Elder Lee was something else. Elder, yeah, I cannot shout out any more people without leaving out a million other people.
That's good. If you're listening to this and you feel left out, just hit us up. 51spylaw.com.
Hit me up.
We'll put you in contact with Jordan, or you can come on, do your own episode and refute whatever he said, whatever you
want. Please. Also, yeah, and very, very intentionally leave me out of people you shout out. I deserve it. So
the other thing you can do for us, Jordan, is, I mean, we haven't talked to any of your companions. So if you have any of those that you are still frequently in contact with or haven't talked to in a while, we love referrals. So send them our way. We'd love the opportunity to speak with them as well.
Yeah, this pitch sounds familiar. But yeah, I will.
Will you send us some referrals?
I will do that. But yeah, no, I definitely know sources for some good stories. So
excellent.
That would be awesome. That'd be great. Yes.
And Jordan, we really appreciate you taking the time and coming on here. It's not possible to do the podcast without people like yourself being willing to come on, share a little bit of the story and the excitement and the love that we have for that land. And we want to express to you our love for you as our brother in Scotland.
Yeah.
And just say thank you for coming on.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course. Oh, I thought of one person I do need to shout out.
Go for it.
I got to shout out Bucks Daddy Money. My good friend Jeffrey Buxton, who entered the mission field one transfer after me. He and I met in our stake president's waiting room to meet with our stake president after we had both gotten our mission calls, and we figured out that we were both going to be in the same mission. And we served around each other, but never quite, never in the same zone at the same time. So it was always fun to see him around. Oh, and this is me remembering everyone. I forgot to shout out Elder Barton as well, who I absolutely adore. Anyway, I will stop there, I think.
It's all good. It's all good. All right. Well, thanks again. And we wish you the best. We'll let you know when this is published so you can share it out. And
yes. I will be in touch with you too for other reasons as we get this live in the coming days. But again, I second everything that Jeff said. We love you, Jordan. Thanks for coming on, and we'll certainly be in touch soon. All right.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys so much. It was really nice chatting with you.
Yeah, we loved it. Thanks, Jordan. Cheerio, brother. We'll talk soon.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.